Josephine Webster,
Hello.
welcome to Progress with us.
Hi.
Thank you for being our first female guest.
Yes.
Only took us 10 episodes to get.
It's a pleasure
About
to have
time,
you today.
boys.
Yeah. Do you know what it is? Guys are very easy to get in touch with because they're always posting about what they're doing. So you're like,
Okay.
right, he's doing something cool. Just reach out to him. And also, girls have on Instagram this setting where you can only send them one direct message.
You're obviously not following me then. Very interactive on social media. So yeah, make sure you're following us and getting in touch.
Mentor models.
Yes, Mentor Model Agency.
So for people who aren't familiar with what you do you want to just tell us a little bit about the business that you've been running for how long now?
Yeah, so it's just over 10 years the model agency has been going. We operate from Sheffield, from an office in Sheffield, but it serves the whole of the UK, the agency. So our models are based all around the UK, our clients are based all around the UK. I'd probably say most work Manchester, London, but yeah, all your smaller cities and towns around as well.
Cool. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, actually? Obviously, we spoke a little bit off camera, and you've got quite an interesting story.
Yeah, so I got into the modelling industry at age 16. I did a modelling course at a small local model agency in Sheffield, just up the road from here, which was lots of fun. Believe it or not, I was a really, really shy teenager. Growing up, I'd been picked on for being skinny and tall, because I was really tall for my age and a really young, early age. Even my aunties would torment me, but then some of them would be like, you could be a model. Models are tall, models have skinny legs, So it always stuck in my mind. I was like, oh yeah, I'd quite like to do some modelling, and I loved fashion, loved clothes. And my grandma, bless her, paid for me to go on this modelling course. And it was great, actually. People say don't spend money getting into modelling. It's a scam if you charge money. But
What do you do in a modelling course?
so it was a 6-week course on Sundays, and they taught us to walk properly. They taught us etiquette, so even things like eating properly and using knife and fork and a napkin. Yeah, it was quite bizarre, but actually useful skills, especially if you are going to be going out, like even with clients, like back in the day, some of my jobs were in really high profile places. I think I mentioned on a message to you guys that I'd been to a party on the Eiffel Tower, and it's really useful when mixing in those circles to just be able to, hold yourself properly. And
So for people, I guess, trying to get into modelling and do stuff like that, I guess there's not much. I feel like generally people don't really know where to start. Is doing a modelling course something that most people should get into, or is it not necessary?
I don't think there are many around anymore, and I think that's because of all the bad press around spending money on doing modelling. But in my opinion, it's like any business, any business person and any entrepreneur. You've got to have some outlay first, haven't you? You've got to spend money to make money. It's like, if you were a plumber, electrician, you'd go out and buy equipment, wouldn't you? You'd equip yourself for the job so that you can perform it. And I think it's the same with modelling. You can't just turn up at a photo shoot and not have a clue what you're doing. And I think also the other hard thing with getting into modelling is knowing that you've got to promote yourself, and you've got to talk about yourself, and you've got to email people, you've got to be confident. And the modelling courses do actually help with all that. It's something that I think should probably be around a bit more, but like I say, it's the bad press and it's the amount of bad people that jump on the back of these things and overcharge, or they have no idea about the modelling industry and they're just winging it.
So when you were doing the course, was there like some sort of guarantee of an opportunity afterwards, or did it increase your opportunity of being able to find a job?
So there was no guarantees. I think there never has been in this industry. Again, it's something where you've got to have the right look, be in the right place at the right time, and all those things have got to fall into place. So no one can promise you anything, and if they do, that's when I'd run 1,000 miles. That's not good. But it does put you in the right place for opportunities. So you're gonna do some networking. You're going to have castings. If it's a model agency running the course, then I'd hope that they're going to take you on at the end of that course. And you out there to their clients. They'll help get you set up with portfolios, and so it gives you the opportunities.
So you started doing modelling when you were 16, so that's around the time that you probably will have been leaving school.
Yeah.
So was it just full-time modelling after that, or was there, because You didn't go to university, am I correct?
I didn't go to university. I never wanted to go to university. So I always had it in my head, I want to work. I want to get straight to work. I want to earn money. I want a house. I want this. I was always quite adamant that that's the way I wanted to go, even though my parents wanted me to go to uni and, you know, grandparents, etc. I was at school. I was studying A-levels in my first year. Again, against my wishes, my parents had said, if you get the GCSEs that are good enough, you're staying on, you're doing your A-levels. So I stayed on, did this modelling course while I was in that first year of A-levels, and then got a little show that I was working on in Chesterfield in their fashion department. So they were doing a show in Chesterfield Town Centre for the college, and missed a few days from school because I was doing this show, and I actually got called into the deputy's office, and he said, right, you're suspended. I was like, what, why? And he was like, well, you've been flaunting yourself in these shows. And I was like, no, I've not. It's just fashion shows. They were like, no, it's frowned upon. You know, you've been flaunting yourself. You're suspended. Go home.
Had you told them that you'd taken the days off to go and do a modelling show?
Do you know, I can't remember if I actually said a show, but I did tell them, you know, obviously I reported absent and yeah.
So suspended permanently?
No, so suspended, so off I went, home from school. I'm on the school bus, sorry, not even the school bus, the public bus, because I'm leaving school early, on my way home, and I was one of the first people back in 97 to have a mobile phone. My mobile rings, and it's my dad, where are you? And I'm thinking, oh God, I'm going to get in serious trouble here. School have been on the phone, no, not told my parents yet, and he was like, you've had a call from your agency, you need to go on stage tonight and dance for Bryan Adams at a big concert. There's like 20,000 people. I was like, what? You know, and I was like, I've been suspended from school today. They were like, yeah, but you need to hurry up and come home. And I was like, oh my God, you know, I totally have got away with this. So I went home, my mum and dad were buzzing, and, you know, I told them why I'd been suspended, and they kind of were so excited about the whole Bryan Adams thing. Obviously.
They big Bryan Adams fans.
Yeah, I think everyone was. You know, back in the 90s, you guys are a lot younger than me, but back in the 90s, he was like it. You know, he's the rock star of the moment.
For people who are our age who are listening to this, Bryan Adams sings "The Summer of '69," which is probably that's the song that I know him for.
Yeah, that's a great song. Yeah. But back in the 90s, he was probably more known for like the Robin Hood theme song.
I'm gonna have to listen to some Bryan.
Yeah, you're gonna have to.
You'll know it. You'll know it.
Yeah, you will.
So that day, you went on stage to dance for Bryan Adams.
Yeah, so it was just one track. It was the only thing that looks good on me is you, and there was 6 of us, 6 models. So we were like catwalking across the stage, and then when the main part of the song comes on, we're all dancing, and it was brilliant. It was great fun.
Like going on to dancing, did you have to like learn a choreography and all that
no,
kind of stuff?
No, it was pretty much,
like...
we got the choreography for just doing the catwalk, and then the point at which we started dancing in pairs, but it wasn't choreographed, and I was no dancer. So, thank goodness.
So going back to what you said as well about promoting yourself, like we recently had somebody who's trying to become a pro boxer, and he was saying how a lot of people can actually end up losing money in terms of promoting themselves, and they've got to sell tickets to be able to kind of fund what they're doing.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works in modelling, but I'm sure is there a big side of promoting yourself, whether that be through an agency or through socials or like...
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's so much easier now if you're trying to get into modelling because you have got social media. There wasn't any when I was doing modelling, so I'm not even sure if there was like websites for model agencies back then. So it was literally you had cards. So your photos were printed onto, it's like a big giant business card, and it's photos rather than just text. So you'd carry those around with you, you'd take them with you to castings and to meet clients, and then you had a hard copy portfolio book as well with all your images in. So it was really heavy. I used to cart it round all my castings in London, and you know, it was a really heavy book, whereas now you can just have that on your phone or your iPad. So yeah, it was harder to promote yourself, but on the flip side of that, there wasn't as much competition because, you know, obviously now anyone can kind of get photos and put them on the internet and on socials. And
I guess you get people coming out of nowhere as well, on like TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. Anyone can do it. You know, it's opened opportunities, but then on the other side of that, it's made less opportunities because
more competitive, I guess.
It's more competitive. There are more agencies, there are more models. So back when I was doing it, I managed to work full time, and there's not many models now, unless you're talking big fashion models and you know, models in the bigger cities, New York, Paris, London. It's hard for a model to work full time. So yeah, the way of promoting yourself was just keeping in touch with your agencies, always dropping in, visiting them, going on what we call go-sees, which are like castings, but there's not necessarily a job at the end of it. You're just going and meeting photographers and brands and showing your face and trying to get stuck in their minds. And then the other thing is just doing a great job when you're on a shoot, you know. Make sure that you're bubbly and friendly and people like being around you, really. It's not just about how you look and
it's the personality that comes with it.
Yeah, definitely. People have got to like working with you. And
so I guess like for people like us who really know nothing about modelling, what is the actual the process of, in terms of casting or actually stepping on catwalk or getting your jobs, going through the agency, all that kind of stuff? Like, what is it that people have to do?
So what do you have to do to like start in the first place?
I guess just the process up from being like, all right, I want to be a model, to, oh, wow, I'm on the catwalk walking or whatever.
Yeah, okay. So there are places you can get scouted. So Oxford Street. Brilliant. You know, if you're a really tall supermodel type, go walk round. Well, Topshop's closed now, isn't it, on Oxford Street? But any of the fashion stores, or a lot of the big London fashion agencies are based in and around Oxford Street, and they do their scouting in that area. Years ago, we had the clothes show. I don't think that's still going, but that was another great place to get scouted. So try to get noticed on social media, but that's not easy again because it's so saturated with people doing that. The other way is you go direct to model agencies. Most of them have an application page where you can upload photos of yourself, your statistics, like your measurements, and then agencies will get in touch with you if they think you're suitable. It's quite hard doing it this way because agencies get hundreds of these each day, so they just like delete, you know.
I guess you know, look at the draw, innit?
Yeah, it's look at the draw, and they're only looking at 3 pictures of you. So if something doesn't catch their eye in those 3 pictures, then they're just going to dismiss you. But it's worth keep applying. So, you know, like 2 months later, do it again, but use a different set of 3 pictures because they might see something different. Also, when you are applying, don't send like fancy pictures, don't wear makeup, don't wear a fancy outfit, just
don't want it to be raw.
Really natural, really raw, no editing, no filters, just really basic so they can see who you are underneath it all.
So how has that process changed from when you were doing it to now? Because now, if you're saying that there wasn't even websites when you were doing it, but now people can just upload pictures of themselves.
Yeah.
If you were going to go to an agency when you were doing it, would you have to physically go in and
so
take the
you'd
photos?
physically go in, knock on the door, you know. You can still do that in London. So the bigger agencies normally have like an hour to 2 hours a day where you can just drop in. And you know, someone will see you, they'll do a few Polaroids or digitals as we call it now, because Polaroids aren't really a thing. Just drop in and that way. But with the other agencies and agencies that don't do go-sees, it's just a matter of applying online.
Going in and having to say like, hey, here I am.
Yeah, so this is another thing that made probably it less saturated back in the 90s. So nowadays people can hide behind the computer, can't they? Hide behind the keyboard and the screen, whereas back in the day you had to have that confidence to go in.
I guess that's a great way to kind of kickstart your career as well. Gets you used to it early on.
Exactly. Like it puts you straight on the front line.
So you said it's quite difficult these days to do modelling as like a full-time job, because we know a few girls who are models, and I'm pretty sure that they do modelling alongside doing other things as well.
Yeah.
So when you were doing it, were you doing it full-time?
Yeah. So when I did it, it was full-time. To make extra money, and because you sometimes have quiet periods, you're self-employed, obviously you don't get paid if you don't work. I also did promotional work, which probably a lot of girls still do now. So that's, you know, like, so I did events, so I worked at like at races and nightclub events, and I did the Grand Prix, did Monaco Grand Prix, and, British Grand Prix a few times as well, Superbikes, you know. I actually worked for Marlboro cigarettes, which the girls don't do that now, definitely, because you can't promote cigarettes anymore. But in the 90s, that was quite a big deal. That was a big job to get on. You know, they'd send us away for weekends, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all expenses paid, good money. It's really fun, you know.
So you were able to live off that off that
Yes.
full-time income?
Yeah, it was great. Got my first mortgage age 20. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I do think there's a bit less work out, not less work, but the market's more saturated, as we've said, for girls now. However, they do have opportunities with brand representation and influencing, which wasn't there when I was doing it in the 90s. So, you know, some opportunities go and then new ones appear, don't they?
I feel like the leverage that the internet gives you as well. I mean, so let's say you were trying to get multiple jobs when you were doing it in the 90s. You'd actually have to physically go into the stores, whereas now you can have 3 photos on your phone.
Yeah.
And it takes 2 minutes to upload the photos onto one website, another website. You can apply to
you can
20,
apply to
30 agencies
easily
in a day.
30 in a day, whereas back in the day probably 10 most you could. Well, because they all have the same go-see hour as well. So you know, I said you can drop into a model agency.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's normally all of them are like 10 till 11 every day. So
Yeah.
that limits
So
how many you can
pick
go
and choose,
to.
really,
Yeah,
don't you?
yeah. So you'd start with the best agency and kind of work your way.
Would
through
you say, in terms of like the modelling industry, it's been a positive then, with social media being on such a big thing nowadays?
I mean, if you were asking me from my point of view and for my career, I'd say that it's a bad thing, because it was easier to work full time.
Yeah.
And now there's so many more people doing it in so many agencies. Obviously, now diversity plays a much bigger part in modelling as well. So when I was younger, that didn't. There was, you know, that wasn't something that people tried consciously to do, whereas now it is. So the market's open to a lot more people, which is that's fantastic, you know, because inclusivity right now is just it's awesome, isn't it? But yeah, if you were asking me personally, like if from a point of view, I wouldn't be working as much now in this market as I was back then. So from a money point of view, from a career point of view, definitely stronger.
Do you think from
in the
a
90s.
standpoint of like, I don't know, around like body image and stuff like that as well, do you think social media has kind of made it harder for people to get into the industry because they're always kind of comparing themselves to others online and things like that as well?
I think it's made it better.
Do you think?
Yeah, so I think everyone's so much more accepting now than they were in the 90s. So in the 90s it was like constant dieting. It was you've got to be a size 8, you can't be any bigger, you can't put weight on, you've got to be keeping fit all the time. Whereas now I think everyone's embracing different body shapes, and certainly brands and companies are displaying models of different shapes and sizes, and it's fantastic. You know, the pressure is off, I think.
Yeah, you just mentioned how there was like criteria that you had to be a size 8.
Oh,
and
we
you
had
to
hip
diet.
measurements, waist measurements, everything.
Was that like enforced in the contract, or was it? Or were you just told by the agency that you were working for? It's like, Josephine,
Yeah,
you've got to stay a size 8.
Yeah, so it was told to you. There was something in like your terms and conditions that would say you need to make your agency aware of any changes. So the slight change, you know, your waist goes up by an inch, you tell them. But yeah, literally they would get the tape measure out every time you showed up at the office. So it'd be measuring your bust, your waist, checking your height, your hips. And I remember one particular client, I was seeing a client from Tokyo, and I was hoping to go out there on a contract for 3 months. My hips were 36 inches and she said they needed to be 35. I think I saw this lady on 3 occasions, and each time she'd get the tape measure out, she's like, no, it's such a shame, Josephine, you know, you're still not getting rid of that inch. I was living on like Muller light yogurts and oranges and water for like 6 months, and I still couldn't do it. And because I think that's just my shape, I'm curvy, you know, but even when I lose weight I've still got my hips. So yeah, it was strict.
So is there a lot less of that now in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't really know the big fashion weeks and the big fashion agencies, because that wasn't really my type of modelling. maybe that's still the same, but I think the commercial agencies and agencies out of London, that pressure is off now. They're not getting, I hope they're not getting the tape measure out. I mean, we would get it out initially with a model just so we can record the right sizes on the website, but we wouldn't be then checking it, every 3 months and saying.
So explain to me a little bit about how the agency model actually works. So you run your own agency, and models will come to you, or you will scout them, and will you just help them to find work?
Yeah, so if we feel that they sit well with the agency and that we've got the right kind of clients that are going to book them, we'll offer them representation. They will go onto our website, so clients can see the models on the website, but the most common way of them getting work is rather than people picking them off the website, the clients will come direct to us and say, this is our criteria, this is the brief, can you send us a package of who suits this brief and who's available? So then we'd send it out to our models, to our database, they'd tell us if they're free, and we'd send a package off to the client, and the client would choose from there,
So at what point did you transition from being a model yourself to starting the agency?
So I was still doing a bit of both, but I started the agency around 2010. We were in a recession. My work went a bit quiet. I'd had 2 babies, so I was like, is it because I've had children? I was a bit in between the stage of still looking young, but not quite a mumsy kind of model, so I don't know if that...
How old were you at this point?
So I was 30 at this point, and I'd got 2 children, one 6 and one 4. So I had children quite young. I thought I need to do something else, and people were literally coming to me all the time. Jo, how did you get into modelling? What did you do? I've just been scammed. This is so hard. My daughter wants to do this. My granddaughter wants to do this. And I was just giving people advice all the time. And then it came to me, the mentor part of it, the mentor part of our name. And I was like, mentor model agency. And that was it. Just made it happen from there. Got some premises.
So do you guys actually, I was going to say the mentor part of it, do you guys provide like the courses and stuff like you were talking about?
Yeah, so
try and get people into the industry.
My first ever premises were really large, and I had a catwalk built in there with a big studio, and so people could come in, and we did do some courses, and we did catwalk shows and taught people catwalk, and we had a lot of people coming in and doing filming there and using the catwalk too. It was fantastic. Now I don't have those studios, I don't have the big catwalk, I've got a much smaller office, and I think the reason for that is the model agency took off so well that my time is spent doing model bookings now and looking after the agency. We're always here to offer mentoring and support, and models do come into us for shoots as well, so that allows us to give them a bit of insight into the industry.
So for reference, I don't know, how many models on average would you say that agencies kind of take care of? I don't know if is it a massive scale or...
Yeah, it can be really large scale, or then you've got your smaller boutique agencies. We've probably got between 600 and 700.
Mad.
To say that.
Yes, quite a lot, but it's across all the age groups. So we do from newborn up on, I think our oldest is probably about 80 at the moment.
Crazy.
So
cool.
When you spread it out through the age groups, it doesn't seem so many. We've also got actors as well, and makeup artists and stylists, so it's not just strictly models.
How much do clients pay for like shoots of newborn babies?
You'd actually be surprised. Quite a lot. So we get smaller jobs. The basic rate for a baby is £90 for 2 hours, so that's £90 clear they're getting after agency commission for 2 hours of work, and they're not working 2 hours.
Making more money than me.
Yeah, all they're doing is laying there asleep, or having their food or their bottle, or playing with toys. They're not actually working.
Parents will just say, we want our baby, you can come and take photos of our kid, and
they'll apply in the same way as the adult models. They'll upload pictures onto our website, and
got to take the measurements of the baby's waist and stuff.
No, well, just the length. We do have to take the length and the chest measurement as well, because it makes a difference with the clothing that they get booked for. But it's great. The children on our books love what they do. If they don't love what they do, then it comes across from their first photo shoot, and we normally say, it's not quite the right time, go away, maybe come back, let them just be for a while, and maybe maybe they'll enjoy it a bit later down the line.
I want to touch on what you just said actually about it not being the right time.
Yeah.
And generally, whether you're, 13 or 40, when do you think is the right time to get into modelling? Whether that be, just like how you're feeling mentally or anything.
Yeah, so I'd say mentally, you do need to be quite resilient. There's obviously a lot of rejection in modelling, and it's something that you should never take personal, because agencies have a certain thing that they're looking for, and being rejected is not because you're not good looking enough or not because you're not perfect for their clients. It could be just they've got someone who looks similar to you already, or they're not getting that kind of model booked much at that moment in time. And the last thing an agency wants to do is waste your time, because if the model's sat on the books not working, it makes the agency look bad too, doesn't it? You know, so timing wise, I think either as a young child is good to start, a baby or a child, or then probably over 18. There's a bit of limbo in between. I'd probably say like age 14 to 18. So that's an age where you're not a child and you're not a grown-up either.
You're changing a lot around that time.
Yeah, you're changing a lot, so there's not much work for that, unless people are looking specifically for teenagers. There's not a lot of work. So, because I think for a girl especially at 14, you might look like you're over 18, but you're not, and then you don't look young enough for the child work. So
I can imagine that being a model at that time of your life as well, being at secondary school, would be quite maybe stressful.
You don't know.
It depends what your peer group is like.
Yeah.
Because I feel like people, if you're ever doing anything like that outside of school, people will notice it and pay attention to it.
Do you know what? I think this is more of a thing for boys. So we have boys that are aged 12 to 16 and they're embarrassed about it. They don't tell their friends. They don't put it on their Instagram and their socials, but they might set up a little private page that, you know, that on their Instagram. Girls, I think, not so much. They like to talk about it, and girls look up to them for it. So I think if you're a boy, people take the mick out. If you don't,
I can imagine that.
If you're a girl,
I can imagine our friendship group at school. If any of our mates were modelling, someone would probably have a crack about it. So while you were a model outside of the work, what was it like operating inside of that industry? I know that you said you've been to the party at the Eiffel Tower and you've done the Bryan Adams concert. So I'm guessing you are kind of mingling up with, you know, maybe celebrities and going to these things. What is it like outside the actual work?
So outside the work, it is great, because when, you know, like I got taken to a job in Paris, and that meant, because I was there with the clients, that meant I got to go out with them to the parties as well in the evenings, and amazing. I've had some really good experiences. I've had some of the best meals I've ever had, and the best venues I've ever been to have been, you know, after parties from jobs and with clients. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. You know, you do get onto all these guest lists.
What kind of guest lists?
So I used to go to a club in London called Stringfellows, which is, I don't know about now, but it was the most famous strip club. Or dancing club, you know.
Gentlemen's club.
Yeah, but lots of girls in them, obviously, as well. Yeah, so yeah, it was pretty cool going to these events, and, you know, free champagne flowing all night and free food and all the glam.
So what's that like as a young person then? I guess it's kind of easy to, well, I don't know if this is maybe for a lot of boys as well, but I think when you get into that kind of around those people at such a young age, it's kind of easy to fall into that rather than be focused on what you're doing. Yeah,
I think that might be the case for some people. I was always really, really focused, really professional. I loved what I did, treated it like any other business, you know, so never got too carried away.
And it shows, clearly.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I've always been really determined to make it work. When I was young, people would say, "Oh, why are you doing modelling? When will you get a proper job? It's not a real job. You know, you need to go to university." And I was just so determined to prove everyone wrong and make it a real thing and earn money and have something to show for it.
I feel like you do need, whenever you're doing anything like that, self-employed, most people usually have something that they're aiming towards and then also something that they're running away from. And I guess for you had what you were chasing away from, but then you also wanted to prove people wrong here.
It really, really helps with your focus. I mean, I do think it's a personality type. But I think, I mean, I don't know, maybe for you guys have had something similar, you know, setting up the channel. Do you often get people say, what do you do that for? And do you ever come across much?
Do you know what? The majority of people who've spoke to us about it have been quite supportive, but I feel like...
Yeah, I think like certainly non-creative types tend to... They don't know what it's all about and they don't understand it. So, you know, I don't know if you get that same kind of feeling where you're like, well, let's make this work, you know, I'm really determined.
Yeah. I think what a lot of people, I've heard this before, I think it's with things like in the creative industry, it's always cringy until it works.
Yes, absolutely. That's true.
For me, this is like a massive framework that I've got. It's like, right, okay. Usually, do you know whenever you think about, right, so let's say we want to set up a podcast. And then you think, oh, but so-and-so might say this.
Yeah.
And if you actually pick out a name, because usually when you think of people, you don't think of everyone. You think of a certain few people.
Yeah.
And then I remember thinking, am I going to let this fucking person tell me what I'm going to do? And then it becomes like, do you give them the power over what you want to do? And if the answer's no, you just got to go and do it.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you seem like you have a really strong mindset. Obviously, I've watched you on the channel and you seem extremely focused.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
The enthusiasm's just like infectious. It's fantastic.
So something I also wanted to talk about was going back to the actual agency itself. Is do you have a team of people run? How does it work managing 700 plus models, but obviously kind of sharing your time evenly between everyone and things like that? Yeah,
it's hard. The briefs that we get in there were so diverse that it's quite easy to spread it out fairly amongst the models in the agency. So, you know, we might come into work one day, we get a brief for a baby, and then half an hour later it's a brief for an older, more mature model, and then another half an hour after that there's a brief for models in their 20s, 30s. So the mixture of work that we get in throughout the day and throughout the week is really, really varied. Some models don't work as much as others. Obviously, some are more regular. And it just depends on right time, right place again, really. It's the briefs that are coming into the agency.
And how many people do you have helping you run the actual agency?
So now it's just me and one other person. I did have 4 staff just before COVID hit us, and had to dilute the agency's staff during COVID, during the lockdowns, and it's working quite well now with the 2 of us. You know,
it sounds like that's, you know, to me that doesn't seem like there's a lot of people to run a business. Just 2 of you.
No,
so
I mean, because it's an agency and essentially other people are doing the work, we're just sat there taking the bookings and passing those on. It means that it is quite easy to scale because you don't need a large office full of staff. It's the agency kind of format.
Yeah, interesting. What plans have you got for the agency moving forward? Is it strictly, you know, just getting more models in so you can diversify the people that you can offer to clients?
Yeah, we definitely don't want to increase our number of models. I think we're kind of at the maximum capacity that we'd like to be at. So it's just a matter of nurturing those models, keeping their portfolios up to date, and replacing models as they come and go, you know, and they do come and go for different reasons. Some people leave the industry because they're not working. Some people leave the industry because they decide to take a different career. So we are always replacing models. Some come, some go, but I think we'll never really go higher in numbers. It's more looking after the numbers that we have now.
So you said earlier that you're a huge advocate for like the creative industries. In terms of like people wanting to get into the creative industry and like they're not sure whether or not they should just go for it, because obviously a lot of people kind of maybe look down on it, or they're just worried about what other people would think. What's your advice for them? Whether it's, I don't know, wanting to do something like we're doing, start a podcast, become a model, I don't know, illustration, anything.
Yeah, so I would always say go for it and follow your heart. If it's in your heart, then I believe that you can make it work. I think if you're choosing it because it's an easy option or you don't want to do anything else, then no. It needs to be in your head, in your heart, and you need to be almost obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And I think if you've got that natural kind of obsession and that determination, that passion, then you can make it work. I think there are a lot more opportunities now. There are a lot more creative courses at university and at schools. And I think, just run with it. Don't let people turn you off.
Yeah.
You know, there's not just academic work out there. That it's hard. You know, you've got to freelance, you've got to be self-employed, you've got to have periods of where you're not bringing any money in. And I think it's a good idea to maybe have a second thing going, you know, even if it's a part-time job, but just something that will facilitate you to actually spend time on the unpaid.
It's a bit of a theme that we have with some of the guests. Like so two guests come to mind. We had a kid called Ellis on who has a clothing brand, and we had a kid called Darnell on who makes custom boxing boots for boxing world champions. And they're both known predominantly, or like we knew them because of the clothing brand and the boxing boots. And I assume that that's what they did full time.
Okay.
But there's just a bit of a pattern that's occurring. Is that people have their kind of creative outlet, so whether it's clothing brand or boxing boots or for us the podcast, but then they have the thing that they do that actually earns them the money to do that. So you're saying that's kind of a good framework to have.
It's a great idea because obviously you've got a lot less risk. You can't lose really, can you? So as long as the creative thing that you're doing is not taking over your life and you're not losing money from it, then that's always going to be a good thing. But then, you know, hopefully that creative thing will take off and that is the thing that you can put all your time and effort and focus into.
Obviously, you've been a model, you have to have a lot of like mental fortitude, like you were saying, especially with in terms of, you know, when you're going back to all like the measurements and stuff like that. I can imagine as like a young lady that has quite an impact on you. What was it that kind of kept you rolling and was like not... I don't know, I can imagine it's quite easy for you to be like, I just can't do this anymore. Yeah. Was it just that urge to prove everybody wrong? Or?
It was the urge and the determination, but also statistics.
Yeah.
So when I was modelling, the statistics were that you should be getting 3 in every 10 castings. So as long as I was always getting those 3 in every 10 castings, I could take those 7 rejections.
Yeah.
So, you know, I just think, right, okay, well, you did get the last one, so it's okay, you didn't get this one. And it did kind of help me stay in the industry because I think otherwise I'd be like, oh my gosh, I keep getting turned down for everything. But that statistic did help me to just keep going and think, you know, I'm not bad after all. I'm not doing that bad. You know, I'm getting 3 in 10. So yeah.
Do you think dealing with rejection obviously is quite a crucial part of modelling?
It's really crucial. You've got to be hard enough to not let it affect you and to not let it change you. So I'll give you an example. My daughter, she modelled for fashion agencies in London when she was a bit younger. She's 19 now, and she went to a casting, I think she was age 17, went to a casting in London. It was a clothing boutique just at the back of Harrods. And I sat in a cafe, she went off for this casting, and she came back 10 minutes later and she was crying her eyes out. She's in absolute floods of tears. And I'm like, oh my God, what's happened? She said, the lady was horrible, Mum. She measured me and she said, your top half's okay, but your bottom half's ridiculous. I don't know why you've been sent by your agency. You're never going to fit our clothes. And I gave her a pep talk. Obviously, I was like, you know, do not let it bother you. You know, she shouldn't be talking to you like that. We reported it to the model agency that she'd gone for, and they were really supportive. But yeah, she bounced back and she's absolutely fine, and it didn't affect her. But for so many people, that could send you into a real downward spiral.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, even if she hadn't have had you there to kind of relax her and calm her down through it. Something that I wanted to touch back up on is the part of the agency, you said the Mentor Models agency. And I know that you've mentioned to us before that you're a massive advocate for helping people get into creative industries. Have you done any work before, you know, helping people get into creative industries?
Yeah.
Or outside just through the model agency?
Yeah, so mainly through the model agency. However, I've been asked by schools to go and talk about being freelance before, which I've done, and through the agency I've had a couple of apprentices in the past, which is great. And at the moment I've been working with Sheffield Hallam with their fashion media department, which has been loads of fun. Absolutely loving it. I helped them do their final show with French Connection.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it was amazing. So we got a few likes of French Connection on the socials. That was nice. But it was amazing working with the students. They were styling this fashion show, and they wanted a bit of help with styling, with the hair, the makeup, the casting, the walking. So I think the main thing that I did for them when they came in for the shows was showed their models how to walk and how to hold themselves and look confident. And you know, it was fantastic, and they've asked me to go back and do a couple of lectures in a couple of weeks. So I'm really excited for that.
Cool.
Say lectures, but it will be really informal. It'll be more talking about how to get into creative industries, being self-employed, conducting photo shoots, preparing for fashion shows, doing mood boards.
I think it's good for people to hear about this as well, because I think from like the front, a lot of people just see modelling as the models or whatever, but they don't really understand all the back end that actually goes into it.
Yeah, they're like the unseen creative jobs that schools don't tell you about. You know, you won't learn about them when you go on these careers talks and things. This is why I like getting involved with schools and colleges and universities, because then you can talk to them about the other opportunities that they have no idea are there.
I think it's hard because schools, like you said, don't offer that support for creative industries. But with schools, they are measured on the amount of students that go to university from sixth form. Yeah. And then they'll be like, oh, you know, we got these amount of grades, and if that's what you're measured on, then that's what you're going to focus on. Yeah,
they're looking for the academic.
But I tell you what, if you go to any school's hall of like the alumni, you know, none of them are like, oh, you became a lecturer at uni in London. It's like Kyle Walker was on the Manchester City, and England's right back was always the one that everyone talked about at our secondary school.
Yeah, see, we had, I've forgotten his name, the England player from Chesterfield.
John Stones?
No.
He's from Dronfield.
No, not John Stones. It's gone. I'll come back to it. It'll come back to me.
England player from Chesterfield?
Yeah, England player from Chesterfield.
Who plays like now?
Yes.
England player from Chesterfield.
Harry Maguire. How did I forget? So Harry Maguire went to my school and my children's school. So yeah, that's their claim to fame. They've got posters of him up everywhere. Sorry, Harry.
So I want to talk a little bit about as well, because I know that we spoke a little bit off camera about this, but when you were going to these parties and doing all these things, who were some of the big names that people who are maybe our age would recognise who you were mingling with?
There are a few. I can name drop a few. So I think one of the big parties that I worked at was Ryan Giggs' testimonial. Cool. So that was obviously a Manchester United based party, and the other one, so they are UNICEF, aren't they, is the Manchester United charity. So I went to a couple of their events too, and so the whole Manchester United team of that time was there, of the 90s, including David Beckham,
is he as beautiful in real life as
yeah,
he is
and
online?
Victoria is, so I've actually sat at a table with them and had to chat with them. They were both absolutely lovely.
I can imagine. I can see that with the Beckhams.
Yeah.
That must have been a weird experience, though.
Yeah, I mean, it was surreal, but maybe not as surreal as it would be now. Because this was the 90s, again, before much social media was around. You didn't like follow their lives as much as you did back then. I
guess nowadays it's kind of distorted people's perception on these, I don't know, like celebrities or whatever.
Yeah,
because
they've got the TV shows and all that,
And people forget they're just people at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely, they do. They just have this idea of them in their minds that they expect them to be like, don't they? But actually meeting those people in life, you know, they're normal people and they're really nice. I'm sure there's people that aren't as well.
Yeah.
So long term then, I guess, for mental models and for you yourself, what have you got anything in the future that you're working on that you want to do? I know you spoke about obviously going into schools and mentoring and stuff like that. What's the plans?
So we have got plans. We're moving office soon, and I'm looking at, I've been working on a new production agency, so creative production. So it will be run separately to the model agency. Super exciting. It'll be a very, very similar format of business to the model agency. So we'll act as an agency representing creatives from different backgrounds and matching them up with jobs for brands and for businesses.
When you say creatives, what kind of roles are you talking about?
Photographers, filmmakers, graphics, sound guys, colour guys, girls. The whole set stylists, set builders, the whole kind of production. So every creative you need in order to put full productions together. Yeah.
Right, so off camera, we were just talking about mentorship. Something that I want to speak to you on, obviously I'm cautious of time, is just your opinion on mentorship in general. What do you kind of think of it? I know it has a lot of positive impacts on people, especially nowadays there's mentorship available in all different forms.
Yeah.
So what would you say to that?
I think if you're starting business, to find a mentor and someone to talk to before you actually take the steps it's invaluable, you know. It's having someone who's got that wisdom, maybe a bit of life experience. Obviously you guys are so young and I started at your age too, and it is really nice. I mean, at the time my mentor would have been my first model agent, and she was amazing. She was a Bond girl, I think, at some point.
In which Bond film?
I can't remember. But she had like, I was only 17 and she had all these beautiful like images from the film up on the wall, and she was amazing. And she was like, I think she was 60 when I met her, and she was still so super glam, always beautifully presented.
She'd have been maybe a Sean Connery Bond girl.
Yeah. She was stunning. But she helped me, and she told me if something was bad as well, or if something was wrong, she'd say, this is not quite right, or that's not quite right. And she was really quite firm and sometimes a bit scary. But it was good. That's what you need as a younger person. You need someone who's going to almost be like a parent figure, but from a business point of view. Do you have mentors? Like, has anyone helped you with this?
Yeah, so my mentor's actually coming on this afternoon.
Right.
But I think having a mentor in a creative industry is, so let's say you go to university, right? You have a mentor in the form of a lecturer.
Yeah, or your teachers at school.
And if you have, if you go into work, you have a mentor in the form of your line manager or your boss.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you're doing something self-employed, you have to go and try and seek out someone who is maybe in a similar industry to you or has done similar things to you to help you, because that relationship is so important. Like, if you're self-employed, having no one to learn from and having to do it all yourself, like you can do it, people do it, but it will probably take you a lot longer, and you will probably make a lot more mistakes than you would.
And it's a niche that obviously your teachers and your lecturers can't teach you, because they are teachers and lecturers. They're not self-employed, they're not business owners, they're not creatives or freelancers. So it's amazing. How did you meet her?
It's just in a sauna at Nuffield Health.
Of all places.
Yeah. And then it actually took me, I mean, I'm probably going to tell this story on the podcast later, but I think it took me 8 months to actually, from first speaking to him about it, to actually go in on it.
That's good though, because you must have built a bit of a relationship before that and some trust in him.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really speak to him too much, but it as soon as I had the money to get his service, I thought, you know what, this will be worth it. And it is something that I can never imagine not having that relationship anymore.
Wow.
Just because like there's so many things that, questions that I want to ask that, that are suited to him.
Yes.
Because you might not be able to ask peers because they're in the same place as you. And you might not be able to ask like parents or whatever, but so having that kind of more objective relationship with someone is really important. Something else that I feel like we spoke about this off camera on another podcast just with a guest, is that I feel like at the moment with the internet, young men have quite a lot of role models at the moment, and there's quite a lot of people in the past few years who have come out to kind of speak on behalf of young men, not entirely all positive, but I know that there are some people, like for example Jordan Peterson had a massive impact on me in the past 2 years just reading his book, and I feel like there isn't too much of that with young women.
I totally agree, and I've been thinking the same thing. So another thing that I want to do when I get this production company up and going that I'm doing is become KPI, so key person of influence for the business. I want to talk to people more, and get the information out there, get some help out there, and you're right, the business mentors out there on YouTube and on all the podcasts, they're all male, and they're great, and I do love listening to all of these, I've been listening to Daniel Priestley a lot lately, and his advice is amazing, but why are there no women doing this same thing?
Yeah.
You know, I'd love to do more podcasts and get more information out there and speak to women in business, and especially young women that are wanting to get into business.
I mean, I feel like even if the advice is universal, like let's say there's a dude on a podcast who's giving great advice, it is that thing about being able to relate to someone. And, you know, even if the advice is there, I feel like it would be more powerful if there were more female role models. I mean, I've spoken to a few people about this.
Yeah.
And I've said, like, can you name, you know, a female who's out there really speaking out for young women? And I couldn't think of anyone.
Yeah.
And I think with someone like a story like yours, who has had so much life experience, you should do it. You should definitely do it.
Yeah, I'd love to.
When the new agency's out in a couple months' time or whatever, years' time, we'll have to get you back on the podcast.
Yeah, definitely. Watch this space and see what happens. You might say nah.
Of course we'll have you back on that.
Yeah, I'd love
Josephine,
to.
it has been such a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for
wish
having
you
me.
all the best with all the new creative agency, and I'm sure we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Cool.
You too.
Amazing.